I got into grad school and was kind of like, I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. I found that out talking to my coworkers who recently got hired. They were absolutely befuddled that I could have gotten this job without experience. This one guy literally said, he was like, it took me 3 years to get this job. Look, I'm a decent interviewer as is in terms of like normal jobs, but that doesn't make you a good sales interviewer.
I'm really excited to share my conversation with Carter today because this is an awesome example of something that we talk about on this channel, but you can hear from someone else. And that is that having a strong background, whether it's academic or other notable achievements, does not necessarily mean that you are going to be a great salesperson. Carter had actually gotten into an Ivy League university for grad school very quickly for many reasons we discuss in our conversation, realized it wasn't for him. But as he started interviewing with other companies, he realized that his academic background didn't necessarily mean that he was a great salesperson. And it's so hard to understand this on the outside looking in. I've worked with a lot of people that are very smart, but can't understand why they're not great at sales. And regardless of your background, whether you don't feel like you have enough accolades, or conversely, you have a ton of great accolades, but you're struggling to actually get momentum and break in, this is a great conversation about why those things don't necessarily matter and how you can take your background, regardless of what it is, and mold it into something that's attractive for tech sales employers. Carter, this was an awesome conversation. We're obviously excited that you broke into Okta, one of the best companies in the world. I know everyone watching this is going to get a ton out of our conversation.
Really excited this week to speak with Carter, who just broke into Okta as an SDR. Carter, awesome story. I know you were considering a lot of things coming out of school, looking at grad school and many other paths. Maybe set the stage for everyone as we get into it today. Where were you at before breaking into tech sales, and what kind of sparked that interest?
Yeah, so I graduated from LSU in December 2023, a little bit early. I was working a research kind of like internship on campus using AI to detect language markers of serious mental illness, so fairly technical stuff, but definitely involved, extracting relevant information from the internet, presenting it in simple terms to a class. I was also doing an independent project on the side there too with my professor, but I was doing that, mentoring a young man with autism, and which I'd been doing for about a year and a half prior. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I applied to grad schools, but didn't really like my chances. Was looking at the job market for psychology. If you don't have a advanced degree, it's pretty bad. So I kind of had to take inventory and look at making a switch over. I had a buddy that was working as an SDR actually at Okta, and he had worked up from their like BDA, which is their intern, to the BDR, and then to the SDR. And I think he was a senior SDR by that point. But kind of asked him how it was. He had good things to say. Started looking on YouTube. I looked at med sales, but then I landed on y'all's videos. Was a little bit prideful, thought I could do it on my own. Obviously, I didn't. I got calls back from like companies that with like dial lists that were doing, like, their top performers are doing like 300-400 calls a day. I wasn't really interested in that. So swallowed my pride, realized guys like me have a lot to learn from guys like you, took the course, and then I applied to some jobs. I actually got shot 3 for 3 from the field after the course with referrals. Got an interview at Okta. Had some unexpected news. I got into grad school at Columbia and NYU. Bowed out of the process interviewing because I had no clue what to do. And then took the summer to kind of soul search, and now I'm back. I recently landed my job at Okta, so that's kind of what's been going on with me.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. A ton to unpack, but that's a really cool story. I'd love to probe into, like, maybe I know you mentioned you kind of tried some things on your own as well. Maybe, just diving further into that, what do you think maybe you did there? And then what ultimately was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back of like, okay, I do need to invest in something like a higher levels program?
I was just going about, look, I'm a decent interviewer as is in terms of like normal jobs, but that doesn't make you a good sales interviewer. And I really started to get the idea, or like I started to gain that insight, asking around, leveraging my personal network, saying like, hey, I had a CV at the time, which is what psych students use. And they were like, yeah, you don't do that. And they're like, yeah, you shouldn't write about this experience like that. Like that's no sales guy is gonna find that like of interest at all. And I started thinking like, oh crap, I got a lot to learn here. And none of my messaging, I was basically copy and pasting my cover letters into like LinkedIn. And obviously that just like doesn't work like in my messaging. So after just a lot of failure, and watching your guys' videos, really, that was pretty much it. Gradually,
Nice.
then suddenly.
Nice. No, I love it. And obviously super happy that you ended up committing to us. You obviously crushed it. You're a killer. I guess like when you decided, hey, I think some training would be good. Like, was there anything that went into that decision? Was there anything specific that you were looking for? Or was it mostly just like, hey, these guys, I've been following them for a little while. They seem genuine. Or was there anything that made you say, hey, this really feels like the right fit for me?
In terms of your guys's, yeah. I mean, I had watched around like some videos, but all of them were kind of, man, they were kind of like car salesmen, with their program. And I'm not trying to bash anything, but like half the point of tech sales is it's really not that kind of approach, right? Like you're kind of taking a consultative role. And you guys wouldn't post videos like when you guys post a video, it's like top 50 things to watch out for in 2024, right? You guys don't stop at thing 25 and say, come buy my course and you'll hear the other 25. Like that never happened. So yeah, you guys just seem genuine. And then videos like these, I mean, nobody really has these kinds of unscripted videos. So
Nice. Well, we appreciate it, of course. Yeah, I think, and not to get too deep down, this rabbit hole, obviously this is about you, but I think there's like this flawed thing where, if you try to make everything this bubble where everything is so perfect, you're going to attract the wrong person. We want to actually work with people who know what they're getting themselves into so they don't get into a situation where like, oh shit, like this is nothing like what I thought the career was going to be. Yeah. Like what, that's why we make so many videos about like, this is why you shouldn't go into tech sales. And it's funny. We have a lot of people like yourself that just say, hey, like, like that's actually what sold me is the fact that you were talking about all the bad things about the industry. So that's funny. Anyway, point being, we appreciate it. I guess now that you've been through the course, you've kind of consumed the content, you crushed it, super happy that you went 3 for 3. Is there a specific part of the program that you feel like maybe was like the most valuable or any that were, more valuable than the others or something that you needed extra help with per se?
Yeah. So I didn't quite talk about this. My perspective is a little bit different. So in February, March, when I first applied to Okta, I applied to a couple other, I was shopping around a little bit. When I reapplied to Okta in August, I did something stupid, and I don't recommend anybody doing this. I only applied to Okta in August, and I applied to no other companies. So, yeah, definitely don't recommend that. So, and again, so my perspective is a little different, but the fundamentals still apply. Even when I was talking to other companies, that whole part about piecing it together and landing the interview, which I think, Chris, you do that part, but like the messaging, and then even, in February, I was calling people, like I got a referral through the phone, messaging, and then like the whole workbook thing, like keeping track of that. All of that is more relevant to the job than I actually could have ever imagined. Now, being in my first week, shadowing people and seeing their process is what everyone says. That's like the code word for like their workflow, I guess. Very relevant stuff. So that was easily, best part.
Yeah, that's great, man. And I know you mentioned one of the things I want to tap into for everyone watching that's kind of on the outside looking in. You mentioned after joining higher levels, you went 3 for 3. Maybe a couple different parts here. The first being, you mentioned previously you had a CV, didn't even have like a properly formatted resume. So I'm sure doing that helped. But in terms of getting noticed by companies in the first place, you have some cool experiences, maybe not directly tech or sales related. How did you, change things around and start to get noticed by all these companies?
For sure. I mean, condensing your messaging down, like I said, I was copying and pasting my cover letter into essentially LinkedIn message. That's way too much. You want to catch their attention. Doing that, I would say the biggest thing for me was learning to tell a story. which is very vague, but just saying I did this, I was faced with this, and I learned this, which is very easy when you break it down that way, but you can kind of get carried away. That especially like when I'm calling people, trying to get interviews, or just in the interview itself, that was massive.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And obviously, like Okta, great company, some pretty technical things under the hood, and you're calling a wide variety of people. I'd be curious, without that tech, direct tech experience, if you could speak to, giving anyone advice on more of these middle and final stage interviews. Not having that tech experience, is there something you feel like you did to really crush that interview and stand out? Just curious if anything comes to mind.
I'll say one thing that Okta did. It says in their like application description who they're looking for. It says that they're not looking for somebody that necessarily checks all the boxes, which I was really surprised by, because having had that space between February and August in applying, the job market was already kind of rough then, but it's gotten even more rough now. So companies like Amazon, I've heard they're no longer hiring out of school. They're only hiring out of the workforce. Okta also really only hiring. They're really looking for people that have experience. And I'm the only one on my team that has never done tech sales before. So having not had sales experience and knowing that was kind of something on my back, I really had to shine through. Like, it really had to come through of who I was as a person and my qualities, and that I am kind of the clay that they want to mold. And getting out ahead of those objections, and just showing the qualities that they're going to want to see in an SDR, and that they're not rolling their eyes that they have to interview me again. Those kinds of things.
Nice. And it's funny. Usually when we hear those stories of people that just hone in on one company, it doesn't always end up going very well. So kudos to you for crushing it. I am curious, what was it? I mean, obviously you saw this thing about them being, kind of inclusive and kind of wanting somebody who's different, which I understand. That's actually super cool. I wasn't aware that they did that. But what was it about Okta that made you say, like, I'm going to go so hard on this company until I get it? That made you so persistent in going for them. And you said you had a couple other targets. You don't have to share which ones they were, but I guess, how did you go about qualifying these companies and saying, these are where I want to work, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, in beggars can't be choosers right now in terms of like what jobs you're looking at. I can say back in March, it was really like I was just looking at OTEs, to be completely honest, which, not the best call, because you start looking at like rep view and stuff like that, and you start seeing what people are really saying. And, some of the other positions that I was looking at, had higher OTEs than this, but there was a couple of reasons why Okta stood out. Obviously, I had a guy on the inside, that was giving me the lowdown, so I could trust him, because we were friends before he was ever at Okta. So I could get a good handle on what the company culture was like. Big label too. I mean, you guys both went to SEC schools. You guys know, like the saying, it just means more. That's kind of what it felt like to me. Like when I was, they're the leader in IAM strategy. So that was like a huge thing for me. And if they're the leader on the tech side, their sales org has to be a winning team too, right? So, and those were really the big things.
Yeah, 100%. I like that qualifying criteria too. I think, honestly, like, this is the cool thing about tech sales, is it's actually realistic to break into the world's best companies. Like, you don't have to have 3 years of, and they might say that, right? Like, everybody's going to put on the job description, hey, we would like somebody with 2. Of course, you want somebody who's overly qualified for the position so that the manager doesn't have to do shit, right? Of course you want that. But I think that's the cool thing about tech sales, is it's actually realistic to get these jobs if you just go out and show that, like, hey, I can do this stuff. It's not rocket science. So,
and they have 2 entry-level positions that they easily, that I would actually have been qualified for. Technically, on paper, I'm not qualified for the position I got. So I interviewed up a little bit.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's the same thing with both me and Eric. I think we probably jumped 4 or 5 years in accordance to the, job descriptions. So 100%. No, I love it, man. I mean, lots of good stuff in here, Carter. And I mean, you obviously are a killer. You crushed it. Maybe, as closing here, like, there's a lot of folks that are actually in a similar position as you are, like, where they're in grad school, they're really not liking it. They want to look for something else. A lot of people are afraid to make that transition. Maybe like if you could give your younger self some piece of advice, or maybe other folks out there who are going through the same thing, now that you've been through it, anything you want to leave them with?
Yeah, I mean, information, it's like ammo, man. Like, consume as much information as you can. And yeah, I mean, preparation is I'm like, when I know I want to do something, I've got a lot of plans for it. And it was no different in the interview process, like talking to myself in the shower, doing stupid stuff like that. And just being very meticulous about it. So I like to do my research before I'm making a big decision like this. I would just watch as much videos as you want and see what you get from it. And I think the results will speak for itself. I mean, you guys post all these guys getting jobs, guys like me. So I think that's my advice if you're in that position. Nobody's forcing you to take this course or anything like that. So.
Nice. No, we appreciate the kind words. And yeah, I think there's lots of good stuff in here. I think this is a very real situation that a lot of people don't think about. And so like if other folks out there are in a similar position, like definitely we're going to drop Carter's link down below. So Carter, if you're not too busy ramping into the role at Okta, I'm sure you're going to crush it over there. Definitely hit him up. I think, good vibes and everything. But Carter, appreciate the time. This was really, really valuable. And I think folks out there are really going to like it. Eric, I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, no, just congrats again, man. I mean, I love to see it. I'm not going to be the guy who's like anti-grad school by any means, but that's a very real place. We were talking before we recorded. I found myself in. I was kind of looking at an MBA to like quasi procrastinate from choosing what career to go into. So I love to see this. You finding this out way sooner than I did, and yeah, you're in a great position to really run with it. So congrats, man.
Yeah, I appreciate the words. And look, like I would not have gotten this job without you guys in my camp, right? And the confidence that I got from what you guys armed me with was, I really couldn't have done it even knowing somebody on the inside. Like, I don't want anybody to look at this and think that just because I knew a guy at the company, I got the job. That's like, couldn't be further from the truth. Just because you get shot doesn't make you a trauma surgeon, right? Like, just because he got the job doesn't mean he's an expert at getting hired for the job. So, and you guys are the trauma surgeons per se. So you guys know how to get people hired. And I really appreciate y'all.
Likewise, man. That's probably the most unique compliment we've ever gotten. So
I just learned that one the other day. I love it, man. I think it's a great saying.